everyone always wants to build a following, but that's like going to a bar and trying to get someone home like literally that night. That might work every once in a while, but two problems happen then. It may not be a very good fit. It might lead to a lot of regret down the road, but also people buy things from people that they know, that they like, that they trust. And so we want to build and we want to establish a relationship, especially with the things that we do with these type of niches.
We are live for another episode of Agency Growth Engine. I am super excited to have my friend Matthew here. I was just recently on his podcast, and I'm excited to talk to him today about his agency and just a little bit about his growth story, which is awesome because I didn't realize that he was an agency owner. I thought he was a content creator. And so I've been slowly but surely learning about that. And I'm really excited to jump into that. But before we do, I want to do something with you, Matt. This is something new that we're trying out. I want to do a quick draft with you. So I want to do your top 5 podcast or like YouTube channels. Now, I'm like you. I don't listen to a ton of podcasts, but I listen to a lot of podcasts on YouTube. And so I want to see what your top 5 business podcasts are related to anything around marketing or building your agency. So I'll go first, and I'm going to, of course, pick Agency Growth Engine. We're on this podcast is a new podcast. So I'm going to pick that one first so you don't steal it from me. And so what would be your top pick, your favorite go-to podcast that you're listening to right now?
Well, I mean, if you're going to name your podcast, I got to name my podcast the Matt Phifer Experience as well. So most people know me about talking about mental health, but we also talk about content creation. We've had you on my podcast. We've had Socialty Pro on my podcast as well. So we talk a lot about everything. Growing a marketing agency is including that as well.
Awesome. Okay. Yep. And that was I really enjoyed the time on the show. You asked really good questions. We actually had people in the chat it was a lot. We did it live. We streamed it live, and we had people all the way from Scotland that were tuning in and asking questions. So that was really exciting. All right. My next favorite podcast would be the Alex Hermosi podcast, all the content that he has around business.
I really do enjoy that one. I'm going to give a sneaky one that people don't realize. I got to get in all my mental health people who also talk about growing and content creation. So I'm also going to throw in On Purpose with Jay Shetty.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize that he on a much larger scale than I'm at this point, but he also talks a lot about mental health, but he also gets into content creation and marketing and that sort of thing and growing platforms. And so that's another platform I would definitely gravitate towards.
Okay. Awesome. That was a good one. All right. My next one is going to be Iced Coffee Hour by Graham Stephan. I love that show. He brings in creators. He brings in entrepreneurs. They even had the Liver King on recently. Fascinating episode. They had him eat all kinds of weird meats and stuff, and that was pretty funny. But that is a great show. I always learn a ton. And he's one of those guys that runs a really small business operation. He's extremely successful, but he doesn't have a lot of team members, and he's very vulnerable about that. He doesn't like that. And so he's always asking these really good questions about growing and scaling his business to amazing entrepreneurs. And I always learn a ton from watching that show.
I don't think you can talk about marketing or content without talking about Gary Vee. So the Gary Vee Experience. I'm a big fan of his. He is someone that I've always gravitated towards. And anyone who talks about mindset and not being a people pleaser and things like that, obviously they're going to get my attention and get my ear as well.
Awesome. Okay. And then my next one is going to be My First Million. Have you heard of that show before?
I haven't heard of that one.
It's pretty good. It's a newer show. 2 guys. They've both, one of them worked at Twitch for a long time, helped them grow that. One of them had a newsletter that he grew, so sold for like 10, 20 million. And they both, one of them works at HubSpot now as an employee because HubSpot bought his business. And it's a HubSpot podcast that HubSpot's been buying up podcasts and businesses and things like that for marketing purposes. But they just go through tons of different ideas around growing and building businesses. And they move really, really fast. And they talk about a lot of different things. I really enjoy that one.
This is more of a YouTube channel, but I follow a lot of Rachel Peterson. I really, really enjoy Rachel Peterson. I think she does a great job She definitely targets more towards women, but I think even as men, we can is things that we can pick up on. And she's been, I've talked to her offline. She's what you see is what you get, and I appreciate her authenticity. She's very similar to you, and I really enjoy everything that she puts out as well.
That's awesome. And then my last one is going to be Colin and Samir. Have you got a chance to watch that one? You got it.
Colin
Okay.
Smear, no.
This one's really cool. So these guys interview behind the scenes of creators. So the
Yeah.
business models of creators. So think of the most popular creators out there, and then they go in and they go and figure out how they monetize, how they make money, what they're doing well, what they're not. They've done everybody from Mr. Beast all the way down to anybody else that you can think of online, and it's really fascinating. There's nobody else really quite doing it like they do.
Now that you mention, I may know them. I may know their face and may know their content, but just didn't know that that was the name of their podcast. For my last one, who else is out there? That I listened to a lot of Richard Brunson as well.
Oh, okay. I haven't listened to that one.
Mhm.
I know who Richard is. I haven't listened to his show though.
Yes,
That's awesome. That's a good one.
I'm bad with the name of his show. I think he's someone that is I gravitate more on YouTube again, but I listen to a lot of Richard Brunson as well.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for going through that. We'll see. We'll clip this up. We'll stack those next to each other, and then we'll let people decide who has the better podcast list, or go and listen to all of them because I'm sure all of them would be helpful. So let's jump into how you started your agency. How did you get into the agency world from the mental health world?
Well, it actually started when I was actually going to school to become a therapist. So a lot like you, I struggle with ADHD, and so with that comes with I was very similar story to you. I had a different job every single year for a long period of time because I would do something, I would get good at it, I would get bored, I would quit, and I would just keep rotating. Well, I got into sales and marketing before I was a therapist, and I actually stopped in the middle of my program and got into sales and marketing, and then went back to school and finished out. And when I went back to school, what happened was I was talking to one of my professors. We actually became very close. I was like, a lot of therapists, they're really good with psychology and with working with people, but they have no clue what they're doing when it comes to marketing. And he just kind of looked over at me. He was like, "Yep." And so I immediately knew that eventually, at some point in time, I was going to start to gravitate, and I was going to start working with other therapists and try to help them build their platform, build their agency. And I felt like it was just a niche and an area that I would be able to talk the lingo with them and really be able to help them grow. And so early on, I just knew that it was something I was going to gravitate towards.
Okay, so you were going to school to do the job. How did that pivot happen? Like, did you go, okay, I get that I could do this as a job, but really I want to be more of a marketer for it. Where was that transition when you were going to school?
Honestly, I don't know. I knew that I wanted to. I didn't know how the transition was going to happen. With my ADHD brain initially, I was just like, I'm just going to do it all at the same time. Who cares, right? And
Easy.
And so, yeah. And so, I kind of slowed down, and I really focused in on therapy, and then I eventually became a coach, and another time I'll talk about the differences between the two. But I started building my own platform. Basically, is how it started. And as I was building, I knew that as I'm building, I needed to build the team members out for what eventually would become the agency that I wanted. So one of the things I talk to people about is that we're duplicating the success that I've had. And so we're not. This isn't anything. I never guarantee anything, but at the same time, most of the people that I work with are people who have gravitated and have enjoyed and have asked me how to do this themselves anyway. And so it's just a natural conversation. And so once I felt good about my platform and where it's at, it was just a natural fit for me to just launch Phifer Media, and we just went with it. And once I started telling people about it, they were excited about it, and they were like, "Yes, I've always wanted to work with you in some capacity," and so it was just a natural fit.
Okay, so now walk me through kind of what your agency looks like now. How big are you guys? How many team members? Number of accounts? Things like that.
We have 12 team members. We're still fairly young. We launched probably about a month or two ago.
Wow.
And we have about close to 10 accounts at this point.
Wow, that's really good.
And
Okay, so that's really good. That's helpful. So you only been up for a month. You already have 10 accounts. How did you leverage so many accounts so quickly? Is that based off of all of your TikTok and all that kind of stuff?
it's based off of relationships. So it's based off relationships of people that I've had on my podcast, people that I've worked with, people that have had me on their podcast, and just continue to have relationships. Long before I launched, I started to tell people what my goal was and what I was planning on doing. I was listening to their struggles. A lot of people wanted to start their podcast or start creating content. They weren't really sure how to do it, how to leverage it. And so I would have conversations with them. I started out like with a little small beta group, and I would just kind of work with different content creators or therapists, or another industry that we work really well in is divorce lawyers. So I just started kind of talking to them and telling them a little bit about what my plan was. And once we launched, it was just a natural fit for me to just say, hey, listen, this is what we started. My team is ready. This is Phifer Media. Let's get together for a meeting. And we had a plan and a strategy in place. And
That's so cool.
So far, each and every time, for them, it's a no-brainer because they've actually seen it work.
Yeah.
I can take them behind the scenes. I've shown them exactly what I've done, what we're going to do for them, why it's going to work. And one of the things that we've done for them is that I tell them that, listen, everything that we do for you, we're testing on my platform first. So you're not a guinea pig or anything like that. It's something that I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I haven't done myself, and that, or I wouldn't do myself.
So walk me through that then. What is, if I'm meeting with you and I have I'm a lawyer, or I'm another kind of business, if it works better as an example, what exactly are you doing for them? What kind of marketing services are you providing?
We do content marketing. So we make content marketing easy and strategic for people, because when it comes to content, when it comes to social media, it's like the Wild West, as you know.
Yep.
Algorithms are always changing. A lot of therapists, lawyers, coaches, content creators, all the people that we work with, they want to do a lot of different things. They want a podcast. They want all the snippets that they see other people do, but they don't have the time. Oftentimes they don't know how, they don't know where to start. Oftentimes they do have the money, they do have the budget and that sort of thing. I met with a therapist just the other day, and she wants to move away from therapy and wants to start moving towards coaching so she can do more things like this. And so we start out with long form content, because
so you would tell me, so if I'm a therapist, you would say, hey, Gary, we're going to start a podcast. Is that right? We're going to help you start a podcast?
Start a podcast, or oftentimes people will have a podcast, but they're not marketing it properly.
Okay.
And so we tell them that we want everything to be a machine, that everything is all working together. So we take the long form content, we chop it up into smaller snippets, but I always describe those snippets as samples of what they're going to get, because the long form, especially as a therapist, especially as a divorce lawyer, a lot of things that we say, and this was the biggest complaint that I had as when I very first started out, and most therapists do, is that TikTok it's not long enough for us to really go into really good detail, especially with the type of thing that we talk about. And so it's
such a heavy topic. It's not something,
right?
You don't want to do a 30-second TikTok on suicide or on something like that. Like it's too heavy for that. So you're working with them on building the long form and then using the shorter clips to feed up into the long form.
And feed up into the long form. But also one of the things that we do is we want to help build a community. And so we want to get people offline. We want to get people off of social media. I get that everyone wants to build a following, and there's nothing wrong with building a following, but we want to get them off of social media, because as you know, with the algorithm, they might see your video once and then they may not see it again for another 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And so we want to get them off of there into a group, into your texting group, into something where they can continue to continue conversations. I know you have Discord, something along those lines, and allow for the relationship to naturally gravitate. One of the things I tell people when I meet with them is that everyone always wants to build a following, but that's like going to a bar and trying to get someone home like literally that night. That might work every once in a while, but two problems happen then. It may not be a very good fit. they might, it might lead to a lot of regret down the road. But also, people buy things from people that they know, that they like, that they trust. And so we want to build and we want to establish a relationship, especially with the things that we do, with these type of niches. And so once they get off the line, and once they gravitate, once they know you, what happens is that it's now a machine. People may not be ready to buy from you right here, right now, but a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, sometimes even a year from now, now I'm ready for a divorce.
Yeah.
Now I'm ready to go to therapy. Now I'm ready to do this because in the psychology world, people all have to go through their stages of change. They might be in a pre-contemplative state where they know that they need to do it, but they're not ready for action. But if they talk to you and they educate themselves a little bit more, now all of a sudden, and they're ready. And not only are they ready, but you've been the authority figure this entire time. So when they are ready, they know that they're coming to you.
Yeah. And in marketing, we call it top of mind awareness, right? So why does Coca-Cola every year buy the Super Bowl, halftime show, or Pepsi does the halftime show, or whoever does it, even though everybody already knows who Pepsi is? Why are they paying all that money to do that? It's so that when you're walking down the aisle, you go, oh yeah, Pepsi, and you don't even think about it, and you grab Pepsi or Coke. And so that's really, really important. And I think that's where social media comes in so well, is that it is top of mind awareness, where basically I'm getting free advertisement in your eyeballs every single day. Even if you're not watching my whole video, even if you're not liking it, you're seeing my face, you're hearing my voice, and you begin to build a relationship with this person, even though it's only a one-way relationship.
Right.
And I totally agree with you on the follower side of things. Social media is horrible from the follower standpoint. I mean, go all the way back to Facebook early on. When you used to post on Facebook, all your followers would see that. And then they changed it, and they were like, oh, if you want to get back in front of your followers, you got to pay for it. And then it became a whole mess. Instagram was the same way. And now it's like, I post reels now that it'll be like 9 views for no reason. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's just like their algorithm's a mess. And TikTok is actually the worst. I think followers don't even matter on TikTok. I'll post a video and it'll have 1% that'll show it to my followers. Even though the video has 30, 40, 50,000 views, it's not showing it to my followers. It's showing it to a whole different group. And so it's if you don't get those followers back into some kind of funnel or some kind of way to get back in touch with you, you will eventually lose them. So I totally agree with that. Now, so you're just walking through this. You're working with these agencies, or you're an agency. You're working with these therapists or different coaching groups. You're helping them build the long form. The long form is fed by the shorts, and that feeds up into some kind of text group or some kind of community. And then what's the results that they get from that? Like, what are you actually selling to them? Is it to grow more people that sign up with them on a monthly basis, or what is the end result that you're focusing on?
Everyone's situation is very different. Some people want to become some people want more keynote speaking opportunities. And so some of that comes back to what type of platform we're on, because we also create different content. We do a lot of different branding things as well, along with this, to help people funnel what it is they want. Some people want, like I said, to speak more. Some people want more booking opportunities. Some people want more clients, or a variety of all of it. And so depending on what it is that their goal is, we kind of gravitate, we kind of create a system, and we create a strategy for them in those situations. And so someone that might want more keynote speaking, we might focus a little bit more on LinkedIn. We also try to diversify their platforms as well. So we're not just on TikTok, not just on Instagram, but on multiple different platforms. But ultimately, they have to be happy with the results, and whether it's keynote speaking, whether it's to build a more of an audience so they can have more clients. Obviously, if it's a divorce attorney, obviously they want more clients, but majority of people want more clients. But we also, one of the things I do is I also give a consultation every single month, not only to talk about how everything's performing, but one of the big mistakes that a lot of content creators make, regardless if we're talking about a divorce attorney or whoever, is they're not really good at monetizing. So some of them might want to monetize a little bit more to create to create more like digital products, to create courses, to create. So I've done literally pretty much every single thing, and so I do really well on Kajabi. Some people want to get more brand deals. Some people
Oh,
want
wow.
to
So you're doing like you're touching a little bit of everything.
a little bit of everything. Yep.
Awesome.
Affiliate
Okay.
marketing.
Affiliate too. Wow. Okay. Okay. That's really neat. And we could, I'm sure we could go down all those roads. Something that I definitely wanted to talk to you about. I know you have almost 1 million followers on TikTok. How did that, how did that come about? When did that start? And how did you start building that out and kind of end up where you're at now?
That's interesting. I'm glad that you brought that up because that's something that comes up in consultations pretty frequently. And because of the nature that everyone wants to grow a following, if I wanted to get to 2 million, I could do it very, very quickly. And I'm not saying that to brag or anything like that. I've just put out enough content that I know what grows it, right? So I talked a lot about toxic relationships. I talked a lot about narcissism, which is a serious topic and a serious subject. But it got to a point where I actually hated it. And it got to a point where it actually wore me down, wore me out. And the reason why I tell people that story, and I have no problem sharing that with people, and I will work with people. I still have all the resources, and I still have clients that I still talk to about that sort of thing. But in terms of the content, what happened is that once I stopped talking about it, my quote unquote following stopped growing.
Yeah.
But my business actually blew up. And so offline, I'm doing extremely.
So you were successful not
well.
in fake follower life,
Right.
but you actually became successful in real life, right?
Right.
It's crazy.
My community started to grow more. People started to gravitate. I felt better about the people I was working with. I felt better about the content I'm putting out. And so one of the things I tell people is that it's important for us to know and to feel good about what we're actually putting out, regardless of if it's leading to followers. There's other metrics that we actually need to be concerned about, right? Our revenue as business owners, we need to be concerned more about our community. As our community, is that building? Is it the right type of people that are gravitating towards us? Are we getting the right type of clients? Because there was a point in time I was getting clients. I love all of my clients. I don't want to make it sound, but it wasn't a good fit for them.
Why do you think narcissism does so well on TikTok? Like, why does that blow up and get all the followers and bring the wrong kind of client?
There's a component of narcissism that if someone who is not teaching people properly, there's a component that people think that, well, if this person is a narcissist, that there's nothing wrong with me and I don't have to do any work. And so there's a component to that in certain spaces may tend to pander and may say, like, it's not your problem. You're not, you don't need to work on yourself. The entire thing is all their fault.
Is that like the victim mentality that you see kind of everywhere? Like it's permeated into everything.
Yeah.
It's just another version of victim mentality where it's like, well, this person has these issues, so I don't have to fix anything. It's
sometimes people just genuinely just don't know. I mean, there's a lot of codependency. There's a lot of nuance when it comes to that. But because no one wants the relationship to be their fault, and I'm not saying that in an abusive relationship that it's anyone's fault. But even in in an abusive relationship, you have to begin to search within and understand what gravitated you into that situation, what kept you in that situation. And so those are some of the reasons why it's very easy for people to be in a bad relationship, to be in a bad dating situation, and to blame all of the other sex or someone else for everything that's happening in their life. And so it's easy to do that.
I had somebody DM me yesterday. He was an agency owner, and he said, Gary, you're the only person that's telling he said this. He said, Gary, there's very few people online that are actually sharing what the real life is like as an agency owner. And I was like, oh, thanks so much. I took it as a compliment. Thanks so much, man. Yeah. It's really nice of you to say. He's like, but you're probably not going to grow on social media. He was saying, right? Like, you're not going to grow your following like that because people don't want to hear that. There's certain things people want to hear. And there's other things there's certain things that are easier to hear because it reframes it's a confirmation bias. And there's certain things we don't want to hear, right? And so I talk a lot about, hey, this is really tough. You're probably the problem. You're the
Yeah.
bottleneck. You're probably not the leader you need to be in the position that you want to be yet. You're going to have to work through that some. And that's not easy. Like, that's not easy to swallow, and it doesn't get the most views.
That's very similar to me. Like when I very first started, I mean, I was just doing basically making videos about awareness. Then like when you get into my lives, like we're talking about some real stuff, and and I talk a lot about healing, and even if you're with a narcissist, you got to start setting boundaries, and immediately like people started to come after me and started to attack and start exactly what you said. My following didn't grow as quickly, and naturally that, when you're used to seeing like 1,000, sometimes 2,000 new followers a day, sometimes a week, or whatever the case is, you a part of that really helps your ego. But at the same time, when you're like, I don't really care for what I'm doing, it's like, a friend of mine, I'm really glad that she said something to me. She was like, Matt, do you really need 1 million followers? Like, do you really have to have 1 million? And I was like, I'm really glad that she said something to me. I was like, I really don't, and once I started to slow down, and once I really started to put systems in place and things like that, it made such a huge difference, and one of the things I had to tell myself, and I also tell people I work with, is you have to get back to your why. And when I got back to my why, what was the whole reason why I started doing all this stuff to begin with? I wanted more time to spend with my kids. I wanted more time. I wanted more freedom to do what I'm doing now, to travel, to get on podcasts, and to actually enjoy it. And I wasn't doing any of those things. And so once I started slowing down, and once I actually started putting out content that I knew was valuable, and I was like, the right people are going to hear it, and the right people are going to gravitate towards it.
So true. Our company Y is always growing. And something that I realized about myself is that I always have to be growing something. And when I get stagnant and when I get stuck in places, I often go off to find something else that I can start. I'd rather build something from scratch, brand new, than grind something out that I know it's going to take 10 years to be able to even move an inch. And once I realized that about myself, then I'm always happy now, because I'm always growing something. I'm growing a podcast. I'm growing a team. I'm growing, these other projects that we have. And I think that's so important, that you understand what makes you happy. Actually, one of the things that I tell entrepreneurs all the time is you have to figure out inside of your business, inside of your agency, what you actually want to do and what you don't want to do. And if you're not self-aware about that, then you're not going to be happy as a business owner. And they go, well, how do I do that? And it's so simple. You take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, and as you go through the day, write at the top of the paper, what on the left side, the things you love doing, and on the right side, the things that you didn't love doing. And people are like, it's that simple? It's really that simple. And here's the other cool part. It changes. I used to think, man, I just want to do sales, or I just want to do account management, or I just want to do the marketing, or I just want to create, podcasts, or I just want to do this. I'm constantly changing. What I realized, it's not so much what I'm doing. It's that, do I have an opportunity to improve this, make it better? And if there's growth opportunity there, then I'm all in. And if there's not growth opportunity, then I get kind of bored with it, and it's time to bring somebody else in. So I think that self-awareness around your why really leads to happiness in your day-to-day at work.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and where you said it can change, because it definitely, as you grow, or as things change and things evolve, I never thought that I would ever get to a point where I would not want to work with someone who was coming out of a toxic relationship or anything like that. But we're getting closer to that. I would still work with people. I still offer that. I still offer those services. But there might come a point in time where I don't do it at all, and I can actually see that coming. I can actually see that coming down the road. But it's okay to change your mind. Once you start to see different opportunities, and that in and of itself is to your point, is growth.
Yeah. And the other thing I think that people miss out on, and I know I did, I was like in the middle of it and I didn't realize it was happening. The hardest part about business is starting. So starting whatever you're starting, and you have to understand that it's going to change. A business is going to evolve and adapt, and it's supposed to. And so I always tell everybody, I started as an email marketing person for restaurants, and I now do dental marketing. And neither of those things, when I was a kid, if you would have came to me at 16, said, hey, do you want to be an email marketer or a dental marketer? Of course not. But over time, it just morphed and morphed and morphed. And same thing with what you're working on right now. You literally have an agency now that you went to school to do something else and you had another business last year at this time and it's morphing and you're already starting to kind of shed. You're like, hey, I still work with some clients over here, but I'm kind of moving away from that and I'm moving towards this over here. And your agency's going to change and you're going to get different clients. And I think that a lot of people out there want to start an agency. They just don't have it all figured out yet. But I don't think they realize we don't have it figured out either.
Right. No, and I think it's always evolving, and you're always figuring it out, and because the industry is always changing. But I also think that as a leader, it's important that, it's one thing for you to have success, but can you duplicate success in other people? That's when you really start to grow, and that's when you really start to show true leadership skills. Can you teach people? Can you make other people better? And so one of the reasons why I'm confident in saying that that I might eventually stop working with people who are victims of abuse is because I have two coaches under me, and that I've taught, and we have different groups, and it might get to a point where I stop taking people altogether and they just go to them. But one of my goals is to help build them up, to help strengthen their legacy, and help them reach their goals.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Being a leader is a different skill set than being a technician that does the thing, right? Whatever the thing is, it doesn't matter if it's marketing or you're a therapist or whatever it is, you are running or, cooking food. You're good at that thing, and you're so good at it that other people want that from you.
Right.
And then you kind of build a business around it. But then the next part is being a leader, and being a leader is just a totally different skill set. And I always thought, and I was wrong, but I always thought that because I was good at doing marketing, that means that I'm a good leader. Of course, I'm the leader of the company because I'm good at doing the marketing, and nothing could be further from the truth. It's a totally different ballgame, and it's actually really hard. Being a leader is much harder than the being the marketer, I would say.
I agree, because it's everyone always wants to give you credit. Everyone always wants to look at you at any time things are going wrong and things like that. But it's really, in a way, it's all about you, and it's not about you all at the same time. It's all about the team and empowering the team. And if they fail, and if they don't do the task, that's 100% on you. So you get the burden of responsibility when things don't go right, but when things do go right, it's your team's success.
Yeah, you have to praise them. You have to say, hey, you killed it. And when they fail, you're like, hey, I set you up for failure. That's on me. Let's go back and do this again. The way someone else explained it to me is that when you're the marketer, or when you're the therapist or whoever, and you fix the problem, you get a dopamine hit. Because I'm like, man, Matt, good job. You did it. You fixed the thing. And you get that every day, multiple times a day, that you're fixing the thing. You're constantly in the weeds, fixing problems. But when you become a leader, you only get those feedbacks when your team wins. And that might only be once a month, or once every couple months, or once every couple weeks. It's way less. Like it's a fraction. So now you're not getting these dopamine hits like you were before. And you start to feel like, I can't do this. This is not fun. I don't like doing this. I don't feel like I'm winning as much. And you have to realize that, no, I was just getting dopamine hits every single day. Good job, Gary. Good job, Gary. Good job, Gary. And now I'm only getting it once a month or whatever. That was such a huge adjustment for me.
It's the reason why, as a leader, you have to fall in love with the process.
Yeah.
And you have to fall in love with the journey. You have to fall in love with, just because the outcomes and the day-to-day end result isn't necessarily going to be there. And so you have to look at the smaller increments of building and the structure and the system. And if you can't fall in love with that, sometimes it can become a struggle.
Man, that is you just pulled that all together for me, because it is. It's the journey. I always talk about it, like, enjoy the journey, figure out how to enjoy the journey, not the end result or not the end goal. But I realized why that is. I had to survive. I had to learn how to do that, because I'm not getting those dopamine hits every single day. Right. So now my dopamine hits come from the team winning and that improvement along the journey, like that road that we're traveling down. That's so good. So one thing, we have a couple more minutes, and I know this is kind of off subject, but you said there's a difference between coaching and being, what was the other thing that you said? There was two things. Therapist. So you're in therapy, you go to a therapist. I think people kind of have a picture of what that is. And then you go to a coach, and it's kind of always a different experience. Everybody has a different style of coaching. What's the difference between those two?
So the difference is the coach doesn't have a governing body where a therapist typically has a license. I say typically, there's a lot of nuance there. They could be working towards their license and that sort of thing, but they still are under a governing body through their state, through their licensure, that sort of thing. So when you go online, you're going to hear a lot of therapists who don't like coaches. You're going to hear a lot of coaches who don't like therapists. What you'll hear from me and a lot of other people is there's actually benefits to both. One is definitely going to work on towards more of your emotional healing. Sometimes both can do a little bit of that. But one of the biggest differences is that a therapist is definitely going to put together some of the pieces of your past where a coach should be more specialized and trying to get you towards an end destination and an end goal. So one of the biggest transitions, like whenever I was a therapist, I would talk a lot about emotional regulation. I still do that as a coach a bit, but when you're a therapist, people are a lot more, they need a lot more healing. There's a lot more need there. Whereas as a coach, there's a specific goal in mind, a specific issue. And it's not that a therapist can't help you with that, but a lot of the issue in certain situations is that as a therapist, our goal is to empower you to help you get to that destination. In certain situations, some people don't have that time. Some people are like, I know what the issue is. Like, I need some steps on how to get out of this situation, get out of this relationship. I need like some, therapists might ask you a lot of questions where a coach might be like, listen, you need to stop seeing this guy because this is what's going to happen. Right. And so there's benefits to both. But I tell people that, talk to both a coach and a therapist to see which one fits best for you. And sometimes having one of each is good too.
Yeah, I know for me, coaches have saved me. The way I view coaches is that you're going to save me a lot of time. So I'm going to come to you and ask you a very specific skill set that you have, whatever that may be. And it might be around operations in a business, or it might be around how to market something. Or right now we're working with one on setting up a HubSpot in our sales CRM, right?
Yeah.
We could have done it ourselves, but it would have probably been twice, 3 times, maybe 4 times as long, and maybe not the outcome that we want. But by bringing in a consultant or a coach, they're going to speed that process up dramatically. Now we're trading money for that speed, right? So I always just look at coaches as saving me time, and not all coaches are going to there's no coach that can do all things. So I don't expect them to fix all of my problems. I've learned that coaches come in and solve very specific problems, like setting up our project management system, or whatever it may be. There's all these specific things that they can do. And to your point, I think and I might be wrong on this, but I'm going to say this, and you tell me, correct me. I feel like coaches are more forward focused, where therapists have to be more past focused. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
And sometimes, that is correct. A lot of times, you do a little bit of back and forth because you do have to, like when I'm working with people on divorce coaching, we do have, one of the things I do is like, hey, listen, you've known this guy for 20 years, right? So you have 20 years of experience. Like, you know better than I do that he's not going to follow through with this court order or whatever the case is. And so we have to, so when a lot of times people are like, well, they're saying that they're going to be cordial and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Well, we know based on 20 years of experience that they're not going to. And so we need to plan accordingly and to put parameters in place and put boundaries in place and that sort of thing. And so we might whittle through that in an hour, where as a therapist, well, like how are you feeling? Like what is when he texts you, like, how are you feeling about that? Like, do you feel that this person is being truthful? And oftentimes, because in certain dynamics, your emotions are actually a little bit more confusing because you're not as in tune with yourself. And so, so a coach oftentimes can save you a lot of time, a lot of money.
That's awesome. We could totally go down this road, but I'm going to wrap it up with that last question. And what I want to ask you is, where can people find you if they want to connect with you and learn more about your agency or learn more about the services that you offer? What's the best way for them to get in front of you?
So you can go to my website, Matt Phifer Coaching, or you can go to any of my social medias, Matthew L. Phifer. And if you go to the link in my bio, you can book a free 20-minute strategy call. We'll talk and we'll see if it's a good fit, and we'll talk about what's going on, and then we will put together a strategy and see where we can go from there.
You're awesome, man. I really appreciate you coming on, Matthew. I'm super excited about what you're building. I know it's brand new, but I already know you're already killing it, but I can't wait to see where you're going to be at in 6 months from now. So great job, man. Thank you so much for coming on and being vulnerable and straight up with us. And I can't wait to drop this episode.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.